and capture all of this excitement and craziness too. Thanks for joining, Devin. Where are you joining from? If you want to come off mute and say hello. Or not, take your time.
Hey, hi.
Yeah, okay.
I'm joining from India.
Well, nice. Which part of India?
I'm currently in UP.
Oh, Uttar Pradesh. Very cool.
Yes.
Nice. Awesome. All right. I think we have about 6 or 7 folks here. We'll give it maybe one more minute. Yeah, Ash joining from Leeds, of course. So I was joking earlier with Zach that this might just turn to be a old friends reunion kind of call, and I have a suspicion that's what's gonna be. But old friends, new friends. So I appreciate all of you joining. Excited. So let's kick this off. I have quite an agenda that I want to keep track of. All right, so let's get going. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Ta-da, Masterclass. Can you all see my screen? Sweet.
Yep, you're good.
All right. So welcome everybody. Welcome to the Building Public Masterclass. I'm super thrilled to see all of your faces, to see your names pop up on Zoom. Like we had about 44 people, I think, on Luma. And in this post-pandemic world where we're all like back to normal, almost like we're spending a lot of times in person in real life. Having even 10% of everyone who signed up is a miracle, in my view. So my expectation was 4 people today. I think we outperformed by 6 or 7 or 8. I don't know how many we have. I think 8. So thank you for joining. Means a lot that you took an hour of your time on Wednesday and dedicated to like spending time with me. I hope, I promise that I will try my best to make it worth it, to teach you 1 or 2 actionable things you can walk away with, some level of inspiration around your own building public journey, and 1 or 2 actionable tips that you can take and apply immediately. That's my goal with this. And of course, we're going to speak a little bit about the fellowship as well. But if you all can see my screen, we're going to go to the next slide. Okay, so first things first, some of you know me, and this is a ritual that I take very seriously. I want to hear about a small win you all had in the last 7 days. So the Zoom chat's open. Ash is blowing it up. Thank you, Ash. And Rui too. Drop in the Zoom chat. What is one small thing that you can think of in the last 7 days? Could be just this morning. That was a small win that you're grateful for. That's mine. Ash is saying booked the accommodation for my brother's bachelor party. That's cool. Candice, lots of Climate Wine interviews. Yes, that's cool. That's cool. I'm hearing really great things about Climate Wine on LinkedIn. Launched Stripe and Bubble. That's nice. That beautiful weather in Chicago is going to take a walk. I know that a walk's coming. Devin's had my first Twitter space. That's cool. Christian's got completed another module of a Udemy programming course last night. Got a studious Christian here. Good job, Christian. That's awesome. I love to hear all these small wins. Because entrepreneurship, being a founder, I'm sure all of you can agree, is not an easy path. So finding out even like 5 minutes to like just reflect on a small win you've had is always a great start. Devin, my small win is up there. I just posted, having some of my old friends join today was really a surprise. So I'm happy about that. Okay, so today's agenda, I really broke it down into 3 parts. The first part, we're going to talk about the workshop itself, which is the masterclass, a little bit about who I am, my personal building public journey, and some nuggets, that hopefully you can resonate with. Then how do I define building in public? It's actually evolved, my definition of this in a way. And of course, some lessons and tips from I recently just unleashed a beast of a digital product called the Building Public Founders Manual, and I put everything I learned about this topic. Like, I think I went a little overboard too much, but it's everything in there, and I'm so grateful and gratified that I did it, because in moments like this where I have to refer to like particular chapter or lesson or whatever, it's got everything. So we're going to walk through some of that. I'll give you a sneak peek into the in the Notion doc, and we're going to talk about the fellowship for a little bit, and then I want to hear from you. Any questions, any open thoughts, anything that I can help you with. So with that said, I got a DM from Edwin who's asking, is this recorded? Is it being recorded? Yes, it is. And I will share this with everybody on Luma. Okay, so let's get going. All right, who am I? I hope that you all know me by now, but for folks who are wondering or accidentally in this workshop, I'm KP. My full name is Karthik Puvara and go by KP on the internet. I'm currently the founder and CEO of Building Public Studio. This is sort of like a modern company that's a combination of community, content, and consulting. It's centered around my passions, and these are my top 3 passions. And so I'm calling it the studio to give it a generic high level name. But I run a podcast called Building Public Podcast. Check it out. I have about 48, 49 episodes. We had Gary Vee. We had some amazing guests. I run a newsletter called KP's Column, which is at that link, as you can see. And then I do tweets. I do a lot of content, but I also do angel investing on the side. And then I help startups with their growth and marketing efforts, especially around building in public, building in communities and stuff like that. Previously, I was a program director day one, which was funded by Gary Vee, and that's one of my connections with him. And before that, I think I spent five months of day one. Before that, I was at this rocket ship company you may have heard of called On Deck. I ran the On Deck No Code Fellowship, which was an unbelievable experience. Made an amazing set of friends. Some of them are here on this call. Helped about 350, I think 400 fellows in that fellowship, launch MVPs, build in public. And so it was all, basically the last 5 years of my career have been centered around fellowships. And that's kind of why I'm starting my own fellowship, because it felt like a natural extension. Before the no code fellowship, I was a no coder myself. I still am a no coder. I built about 13 no code projects without writing code. Taught myself Bubble, Adalo, and Glide and things like that. And then I had a couple mini exits, with some of these side projects, which are always gratifying. So that's sort of like my career journey, right? But a lot of that overlaps with my building public journey, and I want to specifically highlight a few things that I think may resonate with you. I grew my Twitter account from 414 followers to now at 41,000 plus. My email audience, for a long time, I reluctantly didn't want to do any emails because I thought it was too snotty or whatever. But I humbled myself and I sucked it up and I did it. And I was so glad that I did it, because now I have an audience on that platform too. Whenever I have a new thing I share, there's some resonance there. Landed my roles at On Deck and Day One, and basically all of my last 5 years in startups have been unbelievably benefited because of building in public. And I recruited guests like Gary Vee, Alexis Ohanian on my podcast, again, in public. I'll show you some tweets that I posted to get them. I got the opportunity to invest and also consult in some top startups. And I won Product Hunt's Community Member of the Year, 2021. And all this to say, it looks like I've achieved a lot, frankly, but I feel like I'm probably scratched 2% of my, journey. And all of this was really possible because of building in public. And I can boldly, honestly say that. And that's what I'm hoping to, sort of evangelize to a lot of people that I meet. And it's almost like it's too good to be true. A lot of people sometimes roll their eyes or shake their heads. I'm like, you guys, this is possible. This is within reach. Of course, it takes a certain level of patience. It takes a certain level of community and people who also are on the same path and just that kind of desire. But it's so possible, and that's really my grand message, is that someone like me was a nobody 4 years ago, is able to pull off a lot of these things, I think a lot of you, can 10x your impact in the world if you really like gave building in public a real chance, And I never forget this tweet that I made. If you zoom in, like this is at 414 Twitter followers that I had in 2018, which is what 4-5 years ago. I promise you, my IQ has not improved by any number of points. I'm not smarter than I was 4 or 5 years ago. I don't think I'm like any more talented than I was at the time. But I feel like that KP, when I look back at that KP, I'm like, he had so much potential, energy, drive, but I just didn't really put that in the public domain. I would have these amazing conversations and chats and like things on iMessage, or like amazing phone calls and Zoom calls, but like on Zoom. Like I would never bring my energy, who I am, my persona, my authentic self onto the internet. Because a lot of limiting beliefs, a lot of mindset shifts that are needed. But the reason I put this slide here is to tell you that I don't feel like I'm any different from that kid, from that guy 5 years ago, except the world is different now. They see me differently. My opportunities, my doors, the lecture surface area has changed a lot. So that is where I know a lot of you are at that 414 number, right? And you may wonder, like, am I ever gonna get to like, the big numbers? The numbers don't matter as much, but your transformation is, I think, what you should be obsessed about. And I know that's the thing that counts. How would I define building in public? And so this is the big sort of evolution or sort of difference that I had from then to now, which is I clearly now deeply know this truth, right? Like building in public, the way I would define it is an intentional practice. It's not winging it. It's an intentional practice of creating content and sharing your real-time story with openness and vulnerability in order to attract like-minded people on the internet into your orbit and nourish those relationships. So if I told you that there were, 4,000 people in a room, and I left you, I got you into the room, and I said, you have like 15 minutes to get on the stage and say something, and you're gonna walk away with the 20 people who resonate the most with you into the other room. Would you not take that shot? You should. And I did in 2018. That's what I did. Every day I would wake up and I'd speak to a 4,000, 5,000, 10,000 audience. And 99% of them would ignore me or not care about my message or my piece of content or whatever. But the 1%, which is like 20 people, 15 people, 4 people, that accrues over time. The beauty of those numbers is that it's not just that they're like, 5, 10, 15, the exact numbers don't matter. It's the fact that they resonate with who you are. So you don't have to change who you are. You can just be you and keep, compounding your impact in the world and keep building that audience, who actually get you. So that's the, that's like, I think one thing that I learned is it's not just about the follower counts, right? So not about being an influencer. I don't for a second think of myself as an influencer. Like actually still feel cringe about like, when I say I have 41,000 followers, but it's not, all followers are not the same, right? And so that's important. It's not about being famous and going viral. I genuinely view it's a very strategic, as a founder, we're all looking for strategic advantages, right? So as a strategic advantage, I think building in public expands your luck surface area on the internet, and this is another caveat I have to share. Contrary to popular belief, building in public doesn't mean extreme radical transparency all the time, risking your customers and your personal information on the internet. It is broadly a philosophy that has many flavors and many variations. So the variation that I use, the flavor that I use, is the one that works for me. There's a certain level of transparency that I give. I share like the journey, the steps. Sometimes I share a small like customer story or some revenue figures, but it doesn't mean you have to like, open up your Mercury bank account and then put the, transcripts, statements on the internet, right? So there's a spectrum, and you have to figure out what is your spot in the spectrum. The meta lesson in the last 5 years for me has been this, is that a lot of the times people fail in this journey because they're aiming for virality, because they're trying to think like a Instagram creator or a YouTube creator or like TikTok creators, it makes sense in their business, in their game, to go viral, to focus on virality, to like Mr. Beast. Like, it makes sense. Of course, the whole guy's career is about going viral and trying to build this YouTube empire. I think all of us in this room, I mean, my goal is not to build a YouTube empire or Twitter empire or whatever. My goal is to be, to live up to my fullest self of being the best founder I can be. Now, the founder of what? The founder of a startup, founder of a podcast, founder of whatever, but being the most ambitious self that I can be and attracting the kind of results that will allow me to be is what I'm after. So from that perspective, virality doesn't really matter as much. So I don't really, like, when I wake up in the morning, like my top 5 things, I'm not thinking of virality at all, right? But I think for serendipity, I look for like what new opportunities will come my way inbound through what I do. But of course, I can't control the output or the things that will come my way. So all I can control is what I create, what I post, how much I do that. So as a founder, your luck surface area and your serendipity will manifest in the following ways, right? You attract new customers, like the fact that Zach, who's on this call, who's going to be a fellow, and a couple others, I've never known you people, until like a week ago, but you've been seeing my content from a long, long time. So when the right time came, when the fellowship launched and like the cohort's going to go live, Zach it made sense for Zach to join the fellowship and like make the sale, right? But the beauty with building in public is you're always selling without selling. I promise, like, I feel like I've been selling for the last 5 years. It's just that I never closed until the moment came, right? So this is oxygen for founders. You're always selling, and attracting new customers is, I think, is an important skill. Whether you do it through marketing or you do it through sales, but like, it's an important skill to keep attracting people. Building a buzzing community, like building in public, opens you up as a human being, which means other founders, other customers, people who resonate with your message will want to be around you. That is a community, in the making. You get relevant feedback, you get useful feedback. A lot of the times when I post something, it's almost a half-baked idea, and I'm trying to seek feedback. So I never like come off as an expert. I try to like say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, fill in the blanks. And I'm blown away by how many people want to fill in the blanks. There's this like urge that intellectual people have that they want to add and to a conversation, so you should leverage that technique. Like successful product launches, traffic to your website, like yada, yada. Like, there's so many benefits, but I think the way I see all of this is really just as a luck surface area situation. So I focus on this part, and this will take care of itself by its own. All right. So I think I've established the context, I've established a decent base. Now let's jump into some mindset shifts, some tactics, specifically some tips, that I can share with you, some templates I can share with you about building in public. By the way, all of this is in this like behemoth of a content collection that I created recently called buildingpublicfoundersmanual.com. Check it out if you're interested. And the behind the scenes, I mean, the inside of that manual looks like this. It's got 3 big chapters, 3 big sections, and it's got, I think, 18 chapters in total. I'm so proud of this, man. It was 43 days of work. Oh my God. It was so hard work, but I'm so glad I did it. So I'll go to one of the key sections here, which I love, which is about the mindset shifts I needed to make, right? And I think this is something that I wish somebody told me when I was just getting started, is that try to be more prolific than perfect. What I mean by that is, for a long time, I realized I had so much to say, or I had something to talk about no code, or talk about particular niches that I was interested in, but I was my own bottleneck. I was holding back because every tweet, I was waiting for that to go viral or get 5 likes or 8 comments. And I thought, if I'm not saying something, clever or funny or interesting to others, maybe that's not, like, I'm not doing it right? But the problem is, to be able to write something that will resonate and then get people to engage with it, it takes a lot of iterations, it takes a lot of you have to basically, it's like basketball, like I talk about all the time. It's like free throws. To get to a point where you can throw, you can do a decent free throw, you have to go through some shitty free throws. You have to like look like an idiot for a while. Like the form will not look great. But what happens is when you practice, over a long period of time, maybe 3-4 months, you will like just have a natural knack of turning, a particular thing into a free throw, right? So the same thing applies to even Twitter content or podcast content or whatever. In my case, I learned it. A lot of people see now, like when I write a certain tweet, like there's a way I write it. Like there's a format that I use. There's like a line break that I use. A lot of people are like, oh, wow, how quickly can you do this? I'm like, of course I can do this so quickly. Of course I've mastered it. And in my sleep, I can think of an idea and how to present that idea so that it can resonate with people because I've done it 30,000 times. So it's really, there's no secret. I'm not any special. Like there's no, like, I'm not a genius writer. I'm like just an average guy, but with an extraordinary portfolio of tweets, right? I've just like done it over and over again that I by now know what doesn't resonate, what resonates. So this is a big mindset shift that I had to make in my previous sort of chapter. I used to think I need to be perfect to build in public. And then now I'm like, no one's perfect. Everyone's hiding their flaws. Just be prolific. It sounds stupid, right? It sounds like very basic, but it is one of the things that holds people back. They overjudge their content on a daily basis. The other thing is there are no boring startups, only dull writers. So I used to think that I needed to get to building the next Clubhouse or the next, like, I don't know, Airbnb, and then I'll start to build in public, or then I'll have something interesting to say. Oh, because I just had a great meeting with Paul Graham, I'm going to tweet about that. Or maybe if I had a great meeting with, whoever. And again, that's a huge mindset blocker too, because you are where you are. You can't change that. You can't wait until you become famous and rich and successful to start documenting your journey. That's the antithesis of building in public. That's how most people do it, but I feel like that's not the game, right? You want to look back to have a series of dots of of all the things that you went through to get to where you are in the future. So I think if you're building a side project, that could be just about newsletters, as small as a small side project, you could share that journey in public too. You don't have to have one definitive, the big masterpiece that you're waiting and writing. They're all parts of your life, and you're trying to explore your curiosities. And so whatever lesson you learned about this particular, newsletter thing you learned, share that in public. Whatever sales call you just had, take a lesson out of it, share it in public. Whatever rejection you just had, put it in public. So what happens is you create a series of dots. So you create your own narrative, and you look back, you'll be so proud that you have all of these documented parts. And you're not looking for, again, virality at every corner, right? So when you forget about virality and just focus on documenting and expressing yourself, it's cathartic. For me, it's so cathartic when I document, my journey. The other thing is, I used to think that, you have to be very interesting. Like you have to be a cool person, interesting person. You have to have cool shit going on in your life. It's true to an extent. Yes, it would be awesome if you're like, rubbing shoulders with like some of the coolest people. But let me tell you what works even better than that is if you are the kind of person who is interested in others than interesting, you just win so like crazy on the internet, especially building in public and building communities. Because community building is about being other oriented, right? What can I learn about Zach? What can I learn about, Rui? What can I learn about Candace? The more I tend to put the spotlight on them, ironically, the more they want to celebrate my content or support me or help me. And I'm like, wow, this is weird. And I the moment I saw this happening in the first maybe 6 months of my journey, I realized this is the game, which is so easy. Like all I have to think about is other people, help them, do something that they support them, elevate them. So this is a mental barrier. Like I said, again, all through my high school, I tried to be too cool, too interesting. And then you realize, just be interested in others. You have infinite content. when your focus is how can I help others, you have very little content when your focus is how can I flex on them, you know. So the other thing is vulnerable and overconfidence, right? So a lot of the times, what I tend to see is people are held back by a fear of okay, I'm sharing a part of me that I'm not comfortable with. I feel this is not, it's not projecting me as a confident person, like fake it till you make it kind of thing. And I think, Brené Brown's, style, like I lean into her methodology of, being vulnerable. Vulnerability is the bedrock of trust. So the way you get people to trust you is by being authentic and vulnerable by yourself. Nobody's expecting you to know all the answers. Nobody's expecting you to, crush every milestone you have. I think the more relatable you are, the more real you are, the bigger your impact can be. I've seen this in my personal content too. Like the more I write from a sense of curiosity and like, hey, here's what I learned, people like really say thank you and like send me replies and emails and shit, even if that doesn't go viral, right? The more I come off as like know it all, boom, this is awesome, the more challenging it has been. So I would say show your true self to whatever extent you can, and own the part of the journey that you are part of right now. If you're going through a series of rejections, own that. If you're going through a series of experimentation with an idea that's not working out, own that. Ask people for feedback and help. So all I'm saying is like, be yourself on the internet. One of my, there's a couple examples that I share is, after I moved on from On Deck and I was looking for jobs, I had a really tough time. I had a really tough couple months. And Zach, I think, maybe you can relate with this. I was so distraught because I was like, I had such a beautiful job and I was crushing it. And then suddenly now in this vacuum period. And so I was exploring a few things. I was doing some job interviews. But I gave myself a particular, like a motivational message. Like, if you don't have a job by August 1st, just patiently, gracefully accept the reality that you haven't been able to attract a full-time role. It's completely okay to take an L. Make sure you feel proud of how intentionally and how much intentionality you put. Blah, blah, blah. All of this to say, I was trying to say, if you're not getting a job in startups, go back to corporate life, right? Which was a bummer for me. I didn't want to do that, but that is the truth. And I made myself a little reminder on my calendar, and I took a screenshot of that and posted. And so many people resonated saying like, this is amazing. Like, thank you for saying that. Thank you for sharing that you're also struggling. Because I guess a lot of people thought that I don't struggle, or I don't have these kind of struggles of like finding a job and finding clients. And so I felt so cathartic doing that, because I usually share a lot of my highs, like, oh yeah, Gary Vee on my podcast and all that. But it felt so good to even share the fact that, I'm struggling with finding jobs. By the way, the good news there is that I found a job within 7 days after this. And I think not a correlation or not a coincidence, but like some other way it just happened. And, there's a good outcome out of that story. One of my friends, Sharath, he tweets about some of his vulnerable truths too. Like Warren, once talked about how he had to let go of his team, a lot of his team members, and how hard it was. These are the kind of things that people don't talk about in public. And I think as a founder, it's our duty to kind of show both the good and the bad, and build the kind of community that we want to be part of. Same thing with Amanda. She had some amazing tweets around, vulnerability and like dealing with that. So I'm gonna pause here, and I think we're gonna go to some tactics. So number 5, let's go through this. Build a brand you want to trust. You want others to trust. Don't be a jerk. Act selfishly. I think it goes without saying, but I have to put it out there because a lot of people, act in a very short-term way. Impact over metrics. I said this, at the beginning. Don't obsess over metrics, because the more you obsess over it, the more bummed out and disappointed you're going to be about the journey. And this last one I think is useful, and we can maybe move to the tactics part. So when we create content, when you post about your journey, there is a tendency to think that people already know this, right? Like, why? Like, this is obvious. And I think that's another huge mindset blocker, in the sense that what might be obvious to you may not be obvious to thousands of people who just woke up and are finding out about it the first time, right? Like, there's so many times I tweet about a tool that I think everybody knows, but there's so many people who are like, thank you for the tool recommendation. Thank you for this. And I was like, wow, so I've realized that a lot of my content is not about me trying to impress my peers. It's not about my peers. It's about the students. It's about people who are 4 steps behind me. It's about, people who are like my younger self who needed some guidance. So I try to write from the lens of who needs to hear this today and how can I help them. So that's about that. So let's go to some specific strategies that I recommend. And there are 10 strategies here. So I'm not going to go through all the 10, but I'm going to talk about a few that are super relevant and helpful. So here's one that I love, which is called sharing a daily and weekly status. This is super low-hanging fruit. Any one of us who is building a startup or who's building any project has some updates. And we usually do these in Slack channels, right? I'm sure you have a variation of this where you say, here's like my daily stand-up, and you post like 4 bullet points of what you did that day. Why don't you just post that on the internet, on Twitter or on LinkedIn, whatever you are trying to build a community? Of course, you don't have to post like some deeply like sensitive, customer data, but what happens is it creates a habit out of you where every day at a certain time you reflect on your day and then you post, and you will be surprised at how many other people who will see what you're doing. And if you have an open question or if you have a particular link you're sharing, they want to help you. They want to know about this. This is something I wish a lot more people did who want my help, because sometimes they come out of the blue and they're like, KP, we've been working on something for 8 months, and here's the thing that, I'm like, why were you in your cave? Like, you could have just been documenting this and stayed top of mind, and I'm happy to hunt you on Product Hunt or whatever you want. So so I know what your story is. Right now, I have no clue who you are, what you've done in the last 8 months. So Levels, Peter Levels does this does this in a great way, right? He's always posting about his daily updates or weekly updates. I think it's an underrated way. And share updates in a way that shows forward momentum, right? Like, show that you started here and here's where you are. You started here, here's where you are, that kind of thing. Let's see. Over the years, I've done so many variations of that same thing. Like, there's like the bullet point list, there's like threads that I write about in the last 20 days. People love that shit, People love to know what you're up to, what progress you're making, all that stuff. The other specific tip that I have is sometimes when people come to me and they say, KP, I have no new content ideas. And I'm like, well, talk about your customers. Talk about what kind of wins and small wins they've had, of course, with permission. But look at this. So Champ is one of my friends. He does a pretty good job of building in public. In one of his tweets, he talks about today's win. One of our customers won a marketing award with content they produced and made Capsule. Capsule is his platform. And usually, like, founders and CEOs, they post this kind of thing in their Slack channels, and every company has their own sort of wall of love or company love Slack channel. I think once in a while you should bring that out into the open so other people can see what kind of customers you typically tend to attract, what kind of people resonate with you, and if I'm in the same bucket, if I'm in the same persona, I might also want to check out your product, right? So when you don't have content about yourself, use your customers and celebrate them. Use your customer content and stories and celebrate them. This morning, I asked you, what's a small win? Like, a lot of the times, our small wins might seem small for us, but they may mean a lot for other people. So I have this routine habit where I share, like, if you go search for small win in my Twitter, you'll see a lot of tweets that I made that are just like small wins, but it helps me feel reflective, and I do that. At the same time, it attracts other people who resonate with it. Same thing with Ankur Nathpal. Like, Ankur is like a very accomplished founder. He sold Teachable for like a $300 million exit. And now he's an investor. Now he's starting another company called Ocho. And this guy doesn't need to celebrate this $200 small win, right? He's like too big for that shit. But what I love about these great founders is that there's a sense of humility. There's a sense of like, hey, every king was once a baby, and everybody has to go through this journey. Every great startup, is once a very tiny operation, right? And so he talks about that, and I loved it. Of course it went viral, or doesn't care about. I mean, I'm not care about virality, but like, of course, people resonated with that. So, Polycubian is another, good example. Like, $24 MRR, isn't that crazy? Now they are at, I think, like 100K MRR or something. They're a huge company, Copy.ai. So it shows you like everyone went through the same, cycle of early stage, sharing small wins, building momentum, and then when you look back, it looks like a behemoth of a journey. Teach what you learned. A lot of the times, like, I write to my own self. I say note to self. Like, sometimes if I feel like my advice is like too strong for others, I just like quote it by saying note to self, right? I've made so many tweets like that, and I'm sure a lot of you have some notes that you want to make for yourself. So use that format. I think it's a steal. Like, please feel free to steal it. And so on and so forth. Let's look at this. So share stories, not updates. So the reason I said this here is a ton of founders like wait until a huge PR moment like TechCrunch article, or getting to Techstars, or getting into YC or something, and then you like say, oh, here's all the things we've done in the past. But people like Ankur and me, of course, I love sharing stories, nuggets, as they happen, as they unfold. And in this example, he's talking about, very excited to be able to officially share that Jess is joining me as a co-founder. Here's how we first met. Funny story, right? Like, isn't that cool? Like, you can think of any number of people you've met in your life and say, here's how we first met, or here's how that happened. Here's how I could write a thread about, here's how I first met Ash many years ago, and then how we ended up working together on Deck, and how he continues to be a great friend now. Like, there's so many variations of that thread. But people love stories, right? Like, people maybe they get bogged down if you're just sharing updates. Like, yeah, you had 4 signups. Oh yeah, you had like 85 visits on a website. But when you say, here's how this unfolded, whoa, people like love stories. So I'm gonna pause there. I think those are some specific tactics. I will share this in this case studies that I think I'll give you access to. By the way, here's my freebie, which I thought about in the beginning, but I never announced. But every one of you who attended this live, I'm gonna give this founder's manual for free, right? This usually costs like $150 or something, but I think all the like all the templates and all the tools and all these like specific formats that I have, I think they require for you to like kind of digest them, at leisure, like kind of go over them. So I think I would love for you to like, take a spin, play with them. I get more joy when other people, get in the game and like build in public. So this would mean a lot if you just take this and apply it in your own way. So awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Rui. You guys are killing me with emojis. But that's all I have for now. So we're going to pause here. How about we do some Q&A, and then we're going to go to the fellowship, because I want to, I feel like I've been speaking nonstop 40 minutes. I want to switch it up, and then we're going to do the fellowship Q&A. Yeah, let's do Q&A right now. Ash, that's right. You get a manual. You get a manual. You get a manual. Everyone gets a manual. You guys are too kind. So yeah, I mean, are there any questions that I can help answer? We have maybe like 10-15 minutes for the questions, so let's do that.
Yes. so I can start if that's all right.
Yeah.
Thank you, KP. Awesome content. Super practical. So I think my case might resonate with others. That I have a day job, and I want to start side projects, but I can't leave my day job until that side project gets some traction, right? So there's a little bit of worry sometimes in how much to build in public. And there's the obvious and then obvious. Like the obvious is like, you know, even if you're delivering value to your employer, there's still like this perception like, oh, if you have time to do other stuff, maybe, you know, so there's like, maybe the people in the company that are not work directly with you don't see your contribution as directly might get confused because it's so public. I mean, that's the point of it. And the other is like timing, right? Like also like, oh, 10 a.m., you know, tweet, like you're in the middle of, so
right.
like,
so
there's the
in your
obvious,
scenario,
so
which,
maybe,
by the way, it's a very, very common scenario. Like a lot of people are in your shoes right now. They have a full-time job and they want to build something on the side and they want to build in public. How much of an overlap do you have between your current job, the employer, and like your team members and whoever, you know, all those people, and your Twitter audience? Like, are they all following you and like they know what you're up to?
I would say like, I would say not a lot, but a lot of the key players, like the founder follows, and like the several executive teams. So like,
right,
I would say few in percentage, but like
high profile. Okay, I mean
profile.
it's tricky then, because they're obviously they'll see your you know, tweets, and like, you know, if you're like tweeting between meetings and stuff. So in my case, I was at a corporate job and I was at Delta Airlines in my earlier phase of my career, but while I was building no code, you know, projects, and nobody gave a shit what KP had to say. I was like one of 150,000 people, right? Like I was like, nobody even knew my first name, last name. They're like, who are you, man? Like, get out, right? So like, oh, this is a blessing. Nobody gives a shit. I'm gonna take advantage of the fact that nobody cares. Nobody's like stalking me. Like I was not that famous yet, so I was like, why? So I spun up a new account called This Is KP. That's why I started in 2018, because my actual Twitter, I had it for 10, 15 years. This is a new account that I just started for startup side project, you know, journey. And, you know, every time there would be a huge conference with like 85 people on a live Zoom, and I was like one of them, 55 people, you know, who were supposed to be a listener on the meeting. I would be like, think about what can I tweet today, or what can I think of? Or if I had like a lunch meeting, I would like, you know, tweet. So I think I had it lucky in a way, which I hated at the time, by the way. I hated being in the disguise. I was like, oh, I just don't want to be KP to the world. But what I would say is, when I was at day one, when I was on deck, in a way, like they were my employers, and like they were following me, you know, and I still would tweet about my podcast. I would still tweet about my digital products or newsletters, which are not related to the core company that I was building, helping build. The way I would do it is, I would draw clear boundaries about, okay, in the morning between, you know, 7 to 9 a.m., I'm going to make 4 tweets or 3 tweets, and they're about my personal journey, right? And during the day, I would make tweets about my company, you know, what I'm working with. And also in the evening, I would say, like, you know, after 6:37, 4 more tweets. So even in my bio, I would signal clearly that moonlighting startups, or like, you know, some version of saying like, hey, I'm an employee, but also my creative passions and all these other things happen during, you know, moonlight. A lot of people do that. Like, you know, if you notice, Patrick, I think McKinsey, Patio 11 is very, very famous. He's like one of the senior leaders at Stripe, and he has a thriving blog, consulting business, and all these other things that he does. But he also is at Stripe. So, but he's very prolific on Twitter. And what he does is that he says that I'm moonlighting all these other things, you know. So I think that's fair. What I would say is, you know, in your case, Christian, it's once you have a boundary, it's actually much easier. It's like, you know, you think, okay, 7 to 9, this is my time. Whatever you're doing, maybe you're on commute, maybe you're going to see, or you have I don't know, like whatever you're doing in that morning time, you can think, what are 2 things I can tweet about from yesterday, or 2 lessons I learned about this side project, you know? So I would say, make sure that you're more consistent. It doesn't have to be spread out through the day. So that's more important. You see what I'm saying? Like if you're 7 to 9, be the guy who shows up 7 to 9, right? It doesn't have to be 9 to 5.
No, super useful, super practical. Love it. Thank you.
Awesome. Oh my God, Ash just posted some kind of a video. I gotta check this out. That was so quick, Ash. That was so quick. Zach's got a question. Zach, you wanna unmute yourself and ask?
Sure. Have you ever posted something that you later regretted or that kind of got you in a little bit of trouble?
When I first got started, I thought I would have that scenario a lot more than it ended up happening. I think as a human being, I feel like I'm very not controversial. I feel like I'm very, very clean and very like thoughtful. Like the mindset that I have is when I post something on Twitter, it's no different from an iMessage with a friend, literally. And I think that's a really powerful thing too. If you think about it, I'm brushing it off as it's like some kind of a low-key thing, but it's actually very powerful because if I write a tweet and if I think of like, oh, would I say this to Ash face to face? If the answer is yes, then I'll publish. If the answer is no, then I would not tweet about it. Even when I have strong opinions about things that I don't agree with, like when Elon Musk took over Twitter and he was firing people nonstop, like, in an almost callous way. I had very strong opinions about that's not great leadership, and I was a huge fan of Elon for a long time. But even those tweets at Elon, I was not trying to make a scene about, look, how I know best, like I'm better than you morally. I was trying to say this is a disappointment. This is not whatever. And so usually my tone is always in the sense of like, what I would say to a friend, so I'm the kind of person who doesn't gossip a lot. I don't have like any enemies, and so like generally it works out very well. There were one or two scenarios where I think I said something about some version of like female founder and like something about like percentage of female founders in no code or whatever. And then one of my really close friends and fellows, replied saying, you're using the word female to mean like as if they're like a separate group as opposed to they could be just founders. And I thought that was fair. Like my wife would say that to my face. And I'm like, that's fair. And then so I went back and deleted that shit and said, hey, this is what I learned and that's fair, So people actually love that. I don't know if they love that part, but like people generally root for your own transformation. People want to know that you can be redeemed. Like I promise you, if Elon Musk today just said, man, I should have been little bit more thoughtful in the way I handled the last 6 months, he'll be the world's most, interesting and like, loved human being. People want to give you a second chance, so that's been my example. I hadn't had any, there were a couple of tweets which I'll share maybe in our office hours where people like I was making a bold statement and people misread my tone as if I was trying to make founders I think I said something on the lines of, I wish more founders were famous than celebrities, or something on that tone. And people were like, whoa, we founders don't need any more extra spotlight. They're already ruining our lives. And I was like, you just like move on. I didn't care, Yeah. Any other question? Let me see. I see some. Yeah. Eamon, you have many drafts.
Yeah,
So let's talk about that. Like, what do you think is generally when you're about to hit publish, what stops you?
I don't know. I have a draft. I wrote a thread on lessons I learned from trying to scale my startup last year. And these are lessons that were very valuable to me, but I just never, it's like still in draft. It's like, and I'm building things all the time. And I'm having conversation. I'm just sharing stuff on my newsletter, but like, it doesn't make it to Twitter.
Yeah. And also partly, unfortunately, the last 2 years, there's been a Cambrian explosion of thread boys. And I think that's killing the vibe for all of us. And what they're doing is they're just going to Wikipedia, copy pasting someone's bio and then just like splitting it into 15 tweets and then posting it. So like when someone tries to genuinely reflect, like someone like you, I mean, we're trying to genuinely reflect about my time at that startup, what I learned. And then suddenly some guy interjects it with saying, here's 18 lessons from Elon Musk's pet dog. And you're like, what the heck, man? Like, right. And so I think a lot of it has become even more challenging because of the noise now with AI even more. Like everyone can create, like ChatGPT can spin out 5 threads on any
Yeah.
topic, no code, build in public, whatever. So my sort of perspective on this is the way to counter that. The only way to counter that is by being extremely like how indie bands are extremely indie. They're like themselves, right? Like you have to be like an indie band. You have to really be yourself. Talk about like no chat GPT can talk about the village I grew up in, So you have to like use real references in a way, and like, you have to use real life examples. Like the example that I gave Zach about one of my fellows calling me out on a female founder tweet, nobody can take that out, right? That's not on Wikipedia anywhere, right? So the more
The interesting
authentic,
thing,
vulnerable you are, you're going to win in the future.
I guess for me, the interesting thing is everybody, like my audience originally was like a certain mindset, and they weren't interested in my founder journey, right? They're interested in trying to get into security, right? So that's how I started with the podcast and stuff. So now that like I'm expanding and there's more stuff, so it's kind of like starting over almost. It's weird.
Yeah, the starting over period can feel a little hard, and it can feel a little weird. But ultimately, you're gonna, as you put out a lot of content, or as you share your story more and more about what's top of mind for you, you're gonna attract people who are genuinely rooting for you, not about what you're doing. Like Rui right here is an example. Like Rui's been following me from on deck to day one to now. I'm like, dude, what's the like what what have I done to deserve you, right? And there's so many people like that. Like there's so many folks who remember me from Kappa, which is like my 8th project back 2018 or 19 or something, and people still are around about what I'm about to do next. So at some point, that's why I think building a founder brand is important. I wouldn't say a brand, like making it a little bit about your personal journey, personal transformation is important, because then if you shut down that startup, it's still, you can still continue your journey with an audience. So
okay,
cool. I think we probably have just enough time. Oh, we're like 5 minutes out, so I'm gonna just do a quick screen share and go through the fellowship slides. Wella here, got to give shout out to Wella for this awesome presentation that she created for me. As you can tell, the previous presentation was done by me and this is done by Wella. So, Wella is my EA who's going to be part of the fellowship, and you'll see more of her. But I'm going to give a quick rundown of a few slides that I have. Why did I start the fellowship, right? And so what it is, it's a curated community for ambitious founders who are ready to commit to, the key here is learn and apply. I'm a huge, like Ash knows this, I'm a crazy believer in helping people apply things, not just learning. So what we just learned in the last 40 minutes is great, but I promise you you'll forget by Sunday, right? So my technique has always been about how do I get people to apply it right away, the next day or the next 2 days, and I will be there to help you apply it, in a way to get you over that fear. And I also am a huge believer in give first. It must be apparent by now. All I do, my whole brand, who I am, all of my friends, it's all about giving value first without worrying about expectations. I just think it's just generally a great way to live life. And what I want to recreate within the fellowship is that kind of community, where everyone is behaving that way for each other. So the problem that I see is building in public is insanely hard when you're doing it alone. It's like trying to go on it's like trying to go to Mecca, like through the, desert, through the, storm and through all of this. I'm like, why? You're always second guessing yourself, and you're probably gonna give up, because you think that you're not doing the right way. I've been through this path, and it sucks. I just got lucky that I survived, and I had 1 or 2 friends who were along with me in this journey, but I think that should not be everyone's destiny. So my intention is to create a fellowship that's a combination of a program, like a cohort, and also a community where nobody else feels as alone as I felt in that journey. So it's right now it says solo founders, but I'm not so attached to the solo founders. Like generally they resonate more because they need community, but it doesn't have to be solo founders. The first cohort, by the way, is kicking off next Monday. And that's where Zach is joining us. A few others are joining us. These are the values. I want to give a little bit about the curriculum. We'll get there. So what do you get? Accountability. I think this is the missing component. So many founders know that they should be building in public, know how to build in public, but 4 months later, when I talk to them, they're still like on step 0. And I'm like, what happened? It's just that they didn't have accountability. The other thing is like, a lot of this stuff is hard and it sucks. And you need community. You need other people like Eamon, who just shared his story, Christian, who shared his story, to feel like, yeah, this is not just me. There's other people too. Guidance and confidence while you build in public. This comes from each other. It comes from me. Like, I've seen everything under the sun in terms of all the highs and the lows in this journey. So I'm happy to pass on my confidence and my guidance to the fellows. The curriculum looks somewhat like this. I'm not fully attached to the week 4, 5, 6 yet, particularly because I want to really build this in public in a way that it makes sense for the fellows. So whatever they're struggling with will become the focus area for week 3, 4, 5, and 6. But it'll generally have onboarding in week 1, which is next week. And then we will have how to get started, finding your voice, Twitter and LinkedIn strategies, validating ideas in public. A lot of the fellows coming in are in the idea stage, so this will be helpful. How to grow an audience and showcase. So with that said, a typical week will look like 3 or 4 sessions, generally 4 sessions, but I'm thinking about, balancing it with people's priorities. So I'll do a poll and ask people how many sessions they want. But you'll have a fireside chat, you'll have a live workshop like the one we just had, a lab session. Well, this is the part where we apply things. So I'll be on a call, on a Zoom, all of us, and we will literally apply what we learned. We will take a thread, we will publish it. We will take your writing and publish it. And then we'll do some edits. So it's like a co-working scenario, and we'll help each other out. And I'm super excited about that one. Because once you do 3 or 4 sessions like that, everyone's set and they know how to get going. Group office hours. Now, in this session, we're going to, as a team, as a group, we're going to reflect on the week and what kind of tweets worked, what didn't work, what was hard, what could be improved. So that kind of thing. Along with it, you'll have one-on-one office hours with me in my calendar, based on your availability. So the times right now are generally 10 a.m. ET. I have to run a poll with the incoming fellows to see if this is the best time. I'm open to plus or minus, so we'll see. But it will be somewhere between 8 to 11 a.m. ET. Here's some fireside guests that you may recognize. Drew Riley, close friend of mine. Drew is an amazing founder, is building in public too. Vedika is awesome. She is Ryan Hoover. She and Ryan Hoover are building a venture fund called Weekend Fund. And she's been building this newsletter called Signature Block in public. And I think there are some cool lessons on that topic too. Shrat, again, a great friend. He just recently exited his startup called Shout Out. He built the whole thing in public and sold it in public too. So we can learn from them. Of course, Arvid Kahl, legend in the space, a good friend. He'll be here with a workshop too. And a few other incoming fellows coming in. You may see some faces you may recognize. You saw Candice earlier, Gary, Lola, Chris, Miguel, some of these like really awesome folks, and Michelle, who's from YC, Nick Tipman. You'll see, Nick hasn't joined today, but Nick's awesome. Zach's here, and so on. All right, so that's a wrap. I'm not gonna dwell too much on the fellowship. I think the message and the value hopefully is apparent, and I want to make sure that it's absolutely the best fit for you. And whenever you're ready, I want you to apply. So that's my pitch. Go to buildingpublicfellowship.com, hit apply there, or DM me, and we can start an application. Would love to see as many of you as possible, given like the fact you're interested in this topic, in the cohort next week. And with that said, thank you so much. Any final thoughts as we wrap up? Zach, do you want to end this on a high note? Do you want to share why you're joining, why you're excited?
Sure, I can. Yeah. I am someone who's been involved in startups for a couple of years now. I'm currently until the end of the week full-time employed, but then going to be making the shift. And so, you know, it was one of those where, having followed, you know, KP for a little while, and seeing, you know, him and a bunch of other a lot of solo entrepreneurs and their journeys, and, you know, honestly, I just got jealous. I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to you know, I wanted to get back to building my own things, because I've been working for other people for a little bit. And this seemed like, you know, the kick in the butt that I needed to kind of make that happen, and you know, have a great community around me to really kind of help facilitate that.
I love that. I think that's a great phrase, kick in the butt. That is so true, and that is so me, right, Ash? You know that you probably co-sign on that. But what's even more, thank you, Zach, for sharing all your story. And I think what I'm super excited about personally, though, is that I feel like I've ran, you know, other fellowships at On Deck and Day One, and have my share of learnings from there. I never ran something this small, and so I'm like super hands-on. I'm like so excited. The combination of the lessons I learned from there, I know what works, what kind of, you know, things, you know, people resonate, but also I have a direct hand in people's outcomes and transformations in this scenario. You know, I don't have a team behind me. I have, like, you know, Wella joining, but so I'm stoked to be so personally involved and really, you know, help the first cohort as much as I can. And, you know, hopefully we'll have another cohort in the future soon, but my focus is all this one for now. All right. With that said, thanks, everybody. I'll see you on Twitter, and talk to you soon. Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks.
KP.
Thanks.